Welcome to Clouds Training. This is part 1 of OOPS Concepts Training Program. In this lesson, we will learn what are classes and structures. Before understanding the definition of a class, we need to know what is an object. An object is an usable instance of a class. These classes construct the type of objects. We will see this with example in a moment. So as per the Microsoft documentation, classes describe the type of objects, while objects are the usable instances of classes. So we will create the instance of a class and make the object. What is a structure? A structure is a lighter version of a class and it is used to create large array of objects, and you do not want to consume too much of memory for that. Classes are reference types, whereas structures are value types. It means object created for the class are stored in managed heap, and this object holds the reference location of that memory. To manage allocation, deallocation of memory, something called garbage collector, which is responsible for destroying the objects created. When they are not used anymore, it will take care of destroying the objects and deallocating the memory. When it comes to structures, they are stored in a stack. So a physical memory is allocated when we create the object of a structure. So we will see the class and structure with an example in a moment. For this demo, I will be using Visual Studio 2017 Community Edition. You can get the free copy of Visual Studio from Microsoft website visualstudio.com/downloads, and you can download the Community Edition for free. And all the topics that are explained with an example are going to be available in the content section of clouds.training. Here, let's open a Visual Studio. Here I have opened Visual Studio and created a console application. To do that, you can go to New Project, select Console Application, give it a name and click OK. If you don't find this, you can type in the search console. Then you should be able to find this console app .NET Framework Visual C#. Click OK. It will create a simple program. Let's add some comments. This will be helpful when you download this program and following the tutorial, you can easily identify the topics. Here, we will create the definition of a class using keyword class, and my first class is the name of the class. It can be anything which you can identify this class. In this lesson, we will be completely focusing on class and structure. So we are not creating any fields, properties, methods and events. We have dedicated topics to cover on each and every different topic here. Just to understand the class, we are creating one simple property called ID, with an integer type with getters and setters. So we will be using this property when we create the instance of a class. Here I have surrounded this class with the region. Regions are helpful to organize your code. Now in the main program, let's initialize the class with the name of the class, and this is the variable that holds the instance of the class, that is object. So to create an instance of a class, we need to use the keyword new and reference with the class name. In this case, this object holds the instance of that particular class, my first class. To read the property of a class and assign a value to it, we can use this object like this object dot. We can read the property and assign the value. To check the value assigned to this property, we can use console.writeLine and value of id is object.id. Once we have the id, this console.writeLine is to write this value to the console, and readLine will wait for a command to close that console. So let's first build our solution and click on Start. Here we can see the value of id is 1. Hit enter, it will close the console. This is a simple example of how we can create a class definition and create the instance of a class and assign value to the properties of a class by using the object. Now we have seen a simple example of creating class and using it in our program. Let us see the example of a structure. When it comes to creating structures, there are certain considerations. For example, structures are value type. We cannot have empty constructors in structures. We should always have parameterized constructors. Structures can be instantiated using the new keyword or without using the new keyword. So we will see that with this example. Let's create the definition of a structure. For that, we will use the keyword called struct, and this is the name of the structure, and we have curly braces to start and end the structure. Let's see it with the simple example. Let's create two variables x and y, and this constructor with the parameters int p1, p2, and assign the values of x and y to these overloaded parameters. This is the way of creating a constructor in a structure. As we have discussed earlier, we cannot have a parameterless constructor in the structure. To understand that, let's create a constructor without parameters. Then you can see the red squiggly saying that structs cannot contain explicit parameterless constructors. In case if you are not aware of what is a constructor is the first element which is executed when a class is initialized. Same goes with the structures. So classes can have parameterless constructors default and structures cannot have. Let's comment this out. Let us understand this structure by initializing it in a main program. So this structure is initialized in the same way we have initialized our class using a new keyword. However, in our structure we have a parameterized constructor. For that, let's initialize another object myStruct2 with the parameters overloaded. Let's print the results. Pass the first value as myStruct1.x. If you remember, x and y are integers defined in this structure. So let's print out the second object's values, and before running this, let's comment out the class example here, build the application. To see this in action, let's put a breakpoint here and here at the constructor. So let's run the application. You can hit F5 or click on start. It will hit the breakpoint. Press F11. Then you can see that in the second initialization, the constructor with the parameters is executed and the values are being assigned to these values. Let's print out by hit F5. You can see that for the first structure, since it is not having any overloaded parameters, its value is displayed as 0, which is default integer value. And for the second object, we have 10 and 10 are displayed for x and y values. Another great example of structure is integer. If you see this, it's a structure. The definition of this class is a structure which has minimum and maximum value. Now let's see another example of defining a structure without a new keyword. We will use the same structure that we have created here, and let's create a variable for the structure. If you notice, we are not using new keyword to initialize the structure. We can initialize the structure by assigning a value to it. Now let's print the values using console.writeLine. Let's hit F5. It will run the application, and we can see for the myClass structure tree we have x and y values printed. In this case, we haven't initialized the structure with the new keyword. And this parameterless constructor is not initialized for this type. I hope you understand how structure works and how we can define our class with these simple examples. In our future classes, we will cover in detail about fields, properties, methods, and OOPS concepts like inheritance, polymorphism, etc. in our future lessons. To read more about the structures, you can go to Microsoft link. I will provide these links in the content area of clouds.training website. So you can go through these points. So you can read more about the structures here in this article. In this lesson, we have learned what are classes and structures with simple examples. In the future lessons, classes are like part of each and every lesson. So we haven't covered much examples when it comes to classes, but we have covered multiple examples with structures. The reason for this is structures are mainly ignored in any OOPS training program. So we wanted to cover in detail about the structures. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.